I was fortunate enough to be invited to go to West Point. I did that because my dad started his company with my college fund, and I didn't have any money to go to school, so this was a great opportunity. I was not your model cadet, but I did kind of finish, which was great, and then that really provided a lot of life lessons. I took build the foundation and the basis for success in the military. Since I just retired from the military about 2+ years ago. Of course, I have time to start another life sciences company, and that's what Nurium is. It's a really amazing, transformative neuroscience company. We're going to make a market with Neurodata that doesn't exist today. We're going to do that to really transform precision healthcare, wellness, and performance. We can't afford to lose one more soldier, sailor, airman to suicide, nor anybody else in our society. And that's what I would offer as kind of an opportunity for us to improve going forward.
Hey, so today's guest is Brigadier General Robert S. Cooley Jr., who founded a tech company, Nurium, after 37 years in the service. Glad to have you on the show today.
Yeah, Danny, thanks for the opportunity again. As we were just mentioning in the kind of start to this, really love what you're doing, providing a little bit of a podium and a conversation with some folks, and good luck to you. You go forward for sure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, as I said in the introduction, you are a tech founder and you came from a completely different background. Not completely different, you've been in leadership roles and you've led 200,000 soldiers before you retired, if I'm not mistaken. So, what's your story and how did you become
Yeah.
a tech founder?
So for sure. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to be invited to go to West Point. I did that because my dad started his company with my college fund, and I didn't have any money to go to school, so this was a great opportunity. I was not your model cadet. But I did kind of finish, which was great. And then that really provided a lot of life lessons to kind of build the foundation and the basis for success in the military, in the business world, and then kind of everything else in society, right? Boardroom, small town Main Street, nonprofits and governmental agencies. So that it was great. I did 5 years on active duty, then left after the first Gulf War, but then missed the military, all the good things about the military. So I decided to join the Army Reserve. Ended up spending the last kind of 27 years in the Army Reserve, and then I was fortunate enough to get promoted. And my last job was Chief of Staff of the Army Reserve Command, where I had oversight of the 200,000 strong Army Reserve soldiers, the civilians that support us, and then certainly their families as well. So it was really kind of exciting. That was during COVID, and I was at Fort Bragg. So we were literally flying an airplane, building deterrence and capability as we were living in really uncertain terms. So it was an amazing couple of years for sure.
And then you transitioned to become a founder of your own company. And from what I know and what you mentioned, you were an entrepreneur even before retiring from the military because you could combine that with your service. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so absolutely. So when I left the active duty, I joined a couple startup companies in the life sciences space, pharmaceutical, biotech. I had some great opportunities to learn for some great mentors on that side. I had a couple exits. We signed some non-compete clauses. My golf game couldn't get any worse, so went off to Carolina, Chapel Hill, got my MBA from there, which was a phenomenal 2-year experience, and then joined Deloitte Consulting. Was able to kind of be in their aerospace and defense and life sciences industry. I still had a top secret clearance, so I was able to get behind the curtain a lot of kind of interesting conversations, which was great. And then was hired by Philips Medical Systems out of Andover, Mass, and was in their kind of venture fund. So I was a corporate VC venture guy for about a decade, and deployed a number of times, with all of those, and then decided it was time to kind of get back to small town America. So I left Philips and then moved back to Wilmington, North Carolina, and here bought a bakery and beer and wine store. So Sin Entrepreneurship is Fun, which is a ball on small town Main Street. And then since I just retired from the military about 2+ years ago, of course, I have time to start another life sciences company, and that's what Nurium is. It's a really amazing, transformative neuroscience company. We're going to make a market with Neurodata that doesn't exist today. We're going to do that to really transform precision healthcare, wellness, and performance. It'll be a dual use application for our military, our war fighters, and the consumer. We want to start by solving the sleep epidemic first. And really the reason why is because like most of our war fighters, first responders, we can't sleep. And there's got to be a better way for us to improve the way we sleep, how much restorative we sleep. And that's what we're doing. And then we also started a 1c3 nonprofit to really use the neurodata that we're going to be collecting in a very thoughtful way to improve. One of the big kind of unspoken to problems in our society, and certainly in the military, is mental well-being and mental health. And so we're going to use our neurodata to really improve outcomes there. That's an area that none of us are doing well. The average we talk about in the public space is 22 veterans commit suicide a day, and I really believe the number is more than that. If you kind of extrapolate that to the rest of society, it's too many people that are doing that. And so we believe with our new thought and our new solutions, we'll be able to kind of fundamentally look at the root cause, identify those issues early, and then improve the outcomes. And that's one of our ways to kind of give back. And I'm sure during our conversation, this evening, we'll talk about what it means to be a servant leader throughout, whether or not you're in uniform or after, because those are important things that we really got to keep primary focus on.
And before we dive into that, could you expand a little bit more on your product that you're developing at Nurium? Because I understand the problem and the solution that you have, but what is it exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're creating neurosensing materials. So as easy as putting your head on a pillowcase, your pillow in your room at night, we'll be able to collect brainwave information, detect it, curate it, and then deliver it to you to show you how you really slept in the sleep stages. We all wear, I don't have it on right now, but we all wear kind of biomarkers or wearables that look at some data. Unfortunately, it's not as accurate as it could be to provide sleep. Only looking at the brain. Right now, we use electroencephalogram, EEG, but that requires a cap kind of glued to certain parts in your head or forehead-based thing. And so it's not usable. It's uncomfortable. It's invasive. So we don't want to change what humans do. We just want to change what we can collect. And it's not more data. It's the right data and accurate data that allow us to categorize how you slept and then make those recommendations to improve sleep. And then you can run your own sleep study in your home rather than going to a clinic from there. And you can, you're the owner of your data, your life. And so you can change things that improve your sleep. And hopefully the outcome is much better sleep. And then really the interesting piece is we can use your longitudinal, so long-term sleep data to be trended. And then we can look for anomalies and disturbances in your sleep patterns because you sleep differently than I sleep, but your patterns are unique. And then we can look for those leading indicators of onset of neurological disease, MS or epilepsy, or dementia or Alzheimer's disease through sleep changes and disturbances. Mental health, depression, suicidal ideation all come through changes in sleep patterns and sleep disturbances. Concussive injury, TBI, those are also indicators of sleep. And so we want to use the sleep data to be very, very thoughtful. And then we can use this data as well to in a 24-hour kind of neurological monitoring through the wear of a compression wear t-shirt or the wristband material in wearables to provide a 24-hour kind of monitoring and assessment. So those who have substance abuse issues, the brain is a leading indicator, will tell you well before any physiological response. If you want to use opioid or if you're on a diet and you see a Twinkie, you shouldn't do that. The brain will signal that to you. We want to provide just a little bit of opportunity for human in the loop to make a change and prevent the outcome that is either too much opioid or do something against your diet. And then we really be interested to allow this information to doctors. So a neuro telemedicine capability, which would be really amazing because when you combine the neurodata, the brain, that is your precise indicator, with the biomarkers that people are very comfortable with and telemedicine, now you have the opportunity to extend the reach of clinicians into health deserts, both here domestically, but around the world. And we can provide those early warnings. That means earliest intervention. Earlier intervention means better outcomes and better lives for millions around the world. So we are really, really excited about what's going on. It's a brand new company. We are excited about where we are, and we look forward to this journey going forward.
And do you use any AI with
Oh,
all of
for
that
sure.
data?
Yeah, so absolutely. So our neuro algorithms will look at the ability to kind of assess and categorize sleep in your sleep stages. And the use of large language models, machine learning, and predictive prescriptive AI will allow us to then trend and look for the recommendations that allow you specifically to improve. And then you follow those recommendations and you see if it actually puts your brain in a better spot throughout the sleep. So absolutely a deep technology play with this.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I have a background in both data science and AI and starting my own tech startups. So I have a lot of questions to you. And just to
Love it.
better understand. So you mentioned venture capital. Have you already raised some capital?
So we're pre-revenue, pre-seed. If you're talking kind of investor model. So we've raised about $500,000 in angel and angel syndicate, which is exciting. We're a little bit early in most of the VC, the venture capital kind of spaces, but we are quickly moving. We have a prototype that's working. We won our first grant with the U.S. government. So we've got the external validation. Our traction is great. Now we're just trying to bring in some additional capital to accelerate our commercialization pathway, which is really, really exciting. We should be in the market this time next year. In our first beachhead market, go to market is a pillowcase with a dashboard, with your device, your phone, and the kind of analytics behind it, and a SaaS model that allows us to kind of provide that data to you. And then the other piece is really neurodata security. So how do you protect neurodata? We're very comfortable sharing biometric data 20 years ago when we were doing telemedicine with Philips Medical Systems, people were very concerned about their biometric information getting into the wild, and then primarily insurance companies making a bad decision. Our society has changed considerably the last couple of years with biometric information. You walk by your smart refrigerator, your entire life kind of comes up on the screen. But we should not be as comfortable with the neurodata. It is that precise. It's that individual. It's a more specific fingerprint about you and your body. And so we have to be very, very careful and thoughtful in how we protect that. That's one of the going in concerns that we have. And we're doing amazing personal hashing, blockchain level encryption to make sure that the data is protected at the source. And then it's we move the fingerprint, your neuro fingerprint, when we move it to cloud compute. Then when it comes back on, you put a fingerprint back on it and you validate kind of where your data goes. So yeah, absolutely critical for us to do that, right?
How big is your company now in terms of the staff?
So we have 3 full-time co-founders. We have 11 PhDs. Most of them have neuro in their background. We have 3 clinicians, all of them sleep experts. We have a chief technology officer, chief data officer, a chief AI, Nurium scientist. So we're really building out this team. And it's interesting that you asked that question because most of our advisors in C-suite were cautiously optimistic about the science because this is a little bit Star Wars and science fiction. But we've demonstrated very, very quickly the efficacy of the science and the technology. And now they're all our greatest advocates. And so, to your point on a tech company, right, building the team, demonstrating that ability to bring the right folks on at the right times is critical. Very much like the military, having the right people in the right place at the right time. And as startup companies go through a maturation process, those who are initial founders and advisors and board members often change because the skill sets required are different as you kind of move from early growth to accelerated growth to kind of more mature business. And then you look at those who can kind of bring the exit or an eventual IPO or something at the end of it, for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. You already touched this topic, and I want to discuss it a little bit more. Your skills that you developed over your nearly 4-decade career as a soldier, how did the leadership skills or philosophies translate into the tech world that you currently live in?
Yeah, great question. And so, it translates every day on every opportunity because when you boil this down, the military and the tech world, it's a human-based business. And so things like the ability to communicate, very complex problems, but very simply, the ability to demonstrate servant leadership at the very start, which means doing what's required, whether or not you're the guy sweeping the floor or if you're the CEO of a company or the commander of a unit, you've got to be able to demonstrate that you're willing to do the hard jobs, or the rest of the team is just going to see this as a transaction. It's not right. The real important thing is, how do you, as a leader in the military and in especially the tech world with so many different stimuli coming at you or potential distractors, is how do you focus? We in the military often say, we need to balance our life between kind of family and military and school and all that other stuff. Being in the Army Reserve of the National Guard, I would offer that, our soldiers and sailors have a unique skill set because they're managing life in concurrence. And so it's not a balance necessarily. It's a ability to focus, and it's a hyper focus. It's a hyper focus, not to forget everything else that's going around you or going on around you, but it's the ability to focus very specifically on a certain set of tasks or requirements that allows you to see the bigger picture. Oftentimes we'll put our blinders on, put our head down and just start rowing, which is in some cases you have to do it. But if you row in the wrong direction because you're not able to kind of see the more grand approach, then you're going to row in the wrong space. So you can row all by yourself and the rest of the team is rowing the other way, or you can get everybody in your boat about the communication and the strategy, the simplicity and messaging. And then it's a lot easier for the entire team to be rowing. The military taught very, very quickly the ability to try lessons. And the lessons come from young officers working with their non-commissioned officers, right? There's no officer that has been successful without the help of a number of non-commissioned officer mentors. My first platoon in Hawaii, I had Smoke Ramirez and First Sergeant Longoria, and they took me aside. And I remember and cherish every one of the conversations we had because it was that foundational and fundamental. So the other part is, right, how do you mentor in the civilian world, especially the tech space? It is a different model. Use of technology is something that changes very, very rapidly. But again, it all boils down to a human business. If you're unable to communicate effectively, strategize, prioritize, align resources, you're going to be unsuccessful in the military, and then you'll be equally unsuccessful in in the startup world, or just business writ large. And it's not only business, it's nonprofit, it's the government space. There's a lot of fundamentals that come out of the military. And we train hard on that. We do sets and reps. And you know what? You get feedback pretty quickly from your soldiers, your sailors, your airmen, whether or not what you're doing is working, yes or no. And then it's just even more accentuated in combat situations because, the risk reward profile of bad decision making at that point is pretty dramatic. You can't micromanage ever. You have to trust your subordinates, trust your team, and you have to trust them to make great decisions. You don't want to be micromanaging in the middle of a firefight or a convoy in a pretty bad spot, or in a board meeting or anything along those lines. That's not the best place. Investors will see that, potential partners will see that, and then the military very, very quickly sees whether or not you're going to be a good leader.
And today, do you oversee operations in your company, or do you have someone else who took on this role?
No, I'm as the CEO and one of the three co-founders. It's me, and the two co-founders are great on the sales side, and so we brought in the right skill sets, and so we divided and conquered to make sure kind of the tech investing startup side is mine, and the business model is theirs, but we're all integrated. And as we bring on full-time staff, we'll make sure that you can't over-define a job description, but you want to, especially in a startup and start, you want to make sure that people understand kind of the priorities and make sure we all align. And you don't want groupthink to occur either. So you want to have folks that you bring in that are willing to challenge ideas and concepts up front. The approach I take, especially in the startup world, is fail fast, fail quickly, but fail well. So learn from those mistakes, don't repeat them, and make sure that you're able to pivot, right? So you have to have the right team. And it's the same thing in the military, right? We always say in the military that, the enemy has a say in our plans, and our plans, we spend hours and hours prepping for them, and it's as good as first contact, and then things change. So the ability to be malleable, flexible, and then pivot as necessary after receiving information, making an assessment, and then executing is absolutely critical in kind of every environment.
Taking my personal experience into account, starting my own companies, startups, trying to raise investments, quickly learned that unless you have a track record and you can prove that you can actually make this happen and X or 100X that return for investors, probably no one will give you money. And I think one of your advantages is obviously your enormous experience in the military. Then you have the team, you have the network. So what would you say, is your biggest advantage that maybe other founders need to work on, whether it's building your network or skills or maybe prior experience before starting your own company?
Yeah, I think you hit on a couple of them, Dave. I think, again, this is a human business, right? The network is the most valuable. And it's not just who you know, but it's the who you know, the relationships. So if you're looking to an investor, if you can get a warm introduction from somebody in your primary network, that helps. That'll just move you from an email that comes in with the other kind of 500 during a day to the top. Or if you have a certain connection with somebody. So the military goes right long and wide. The startup world is kind of very narrow and deep, oftentimes in very specific industries. But the combination of all those nexuses is where you need to find kind of the ability to have that conversation. And then, I'm an angel investor as well. So I invest in very early stage companies. And I bet on the jockey, the team, especially the founders, rather than the horse, right? I would take the jockey over the horse kind of any day, but really got to be a combination because great people will be able to work, pivot, modify, draw the right team members in. And those are the kind of folks that I want to double down on, not only financially, but with my time. And that's another set of networks out there. And so if you are, a new entrepreneur or kind of a seasoned entrepreneur and you're moving into a different industry, leverage those experiences and ask. And when I say ask, it's not only ask kind of your network, but ask your potential customers. Because much like I said, the military, your soldiers will tell you very, very quickly whether you're a good leader or not. Your customers in a startup world will tell you very, very quickly whether or not you have an idea that's nice to have, or it's going to be something they're going to pay for and pay for at a profit that allows you to kind of expand the business. So customer discovery is great. The bottom line is don't be afraid to do it. You know what? You don't want to look back at the end of your life and say, boy, I wish I had fill in the blank. You want to try it. You want to do it. If you are a first-time entrepreneur, try keeping a day job and do what you can as bootstrapping. Gain those sets and reps in that environment. Find a bunch of mentors and partners. Leverage the networks that are out there. And then at the right time, and you'll know the right time, you can get rid of the full-time job, and then your startup, your passion becomes kind of the next way to do it. And just a final thought. if you're an entrepreneur because you want to make money, it's probably not the best place for you to be. Money comes with being successful, but the most successful entrepreneurs have either a product, a solution, or a thesis that talks about their value, right? What do they want to give back? What do they want to deliver to society rather than building a cool widget and getting paid for it at the end? The money will come if you do it right, but it's really a chicken and the egg kind of concept there.
And do you still have time for mentoring people now?
100%. So, that's one of the ways we give back. And so there's not enough hours in a day. So I don't sleep very well, which is the why we're doing Nurium. So there is time, but you have to be very judicious with your time because that's your most limited and critical asset. And so, right, if I'm going into a discussion with somebody I don't know, or a mentor or a senior leader in the government or military, I do my homework and I'm very, very sensitive to their time. The worst thing that could happen to me or anybody is somebody just comes in to want to talk. We want to help, we want to mentor, but you've got to be very sensitive to whom you're speaking with so that you can value their time and be very, very thoughtful. So an email up front talking about potential topics or being on point. But here's what I would think success out of this phone call looks like. Really appreciate your time. And then, there's a little thing called a follow-up. Very few people write letters anymore, which is fine, but a simple email saying, hey, thanks for the time, appreciate it. Here's what I got out of the conversation. Here are my actions. Would love to follow up in the 6 months. Something along that line that makes it from not a transaction, but more of that pure relationship. That will get you a lot longer in terms of a mentorship opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting that you started the company because you have this problem yourself and you're trying to solve it for other people. That's actually how my co-founder and I started our last company, which was also related to meetings and wasting time. And both of us experienced this problem at our tech job and we tried to solve it. Ultimately, it didn't work, but gained a ton of experience there. Do you have some kind of advice that you haven't shared yet to maybe young people in their 20s who are still looking for a meeting, or they aren't sure what they want to do in life?
Yes. Um, First of all, it's amazing the amount of technology that part of our generation is very comfortable with. So almost to the point where we use technology as a default. So I would offer to get away from the technology, put the phone down, use the phone to set up conversations, but actually have people meetings. Zoom is how we extend the ability to have that kind of face-to-face conversation, but go to meetings, go to shows, join the entrepreneurial kind of ecosystem in your city. If you're in a bigger city, there's a lot more opportunity. But get yourself immersed and involved with those folks that are doing it. On LinkedIn, follow certain either influencers in the space or companies that are doing it well, just so you start to understand the lexicon, the language of what that is, and then continue to be a part and don't be afraid to ask questions. But again, in a conference or an ecosystem or a meeting over a couple of beers, that's a great kind of very low risk opportunity to talk to folks, start to build that network. We should end every conversation with, hey, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. Whom else should I speak with? Right. So make that kind of follow on action. And then, then that builds your kind of inner network and outer network. And that's how you're going to get things done, both bringing right folks on, talking to the right senior folks. But as a young 20-something-year-old and your first or second job, eyes wide open, mouth closed a little bit, and do a lot of listening with it. I think that goes a long, long way as you're kind of starting to grow those entrepreneurial kind of sets and reps that we just talked about, for sure.
And before we finish, I usually let the guest give the final word. Anything you want to share that you haven't been able to put out there during the episode?
Yeah, Danny, again, I really appreciate what you're doing. Oftentimes, the military gets put into a box, and we have absolute requirements to do certain things. Absolutely, we have to fly a deterrent airplane around the world and be in the right spots and make sure that we're influencing some of those negative actors in the world to not do things that we know we not. And then if we need to, we want to go and win, not just fight, not just be there for a while, but to actually kind of win. And that's a unique topic that a lot of folks don't talk about. And the military is not meant to be political, right? We should not politicize those in the military. Luckily, our society still is a big thumbs up for the military as I think the number one kind of group in our society. And if we lose that trust with the American people, then we're in a really, really bad spot. So for those in the military, continue doing what you do, be honorable, do what you need to do, but make the right decisions always, whether or not you think somebody's watching. And then be that right model leader, that servant leader for those around you. If there's one gap, I really think in the military, in the VA, our veteran population is that mental health component. There's just not enough folks. So my daughter I mentioned is just finished her first year of medical school, and she wants to go into kind of rural mental health. And God bless her, because that's a spot that's going to be of high requirement and high need on both military and just kind of our society. And so, our military leaders out there, I'm willing to do whatever we can to work with you to make sure we make a difference, and not just a hand wave at it, not just another PowerPoint slide, but really looking at root cause, fundamental issues that are plaguing our society, and then changing it, right? And then making sure that we validate that and do the right things. We can't afford to lose one more soldier, sailor, airman to suicide, nor anybody else in our society. And that's what I would offer as kind of an opportunity for us to improve going forward. But thank you again for the opportunity to join you tonight. And I saw your list of folks that have been on the past and a couple that are coming, and you're knocking out of the park, Danny. So appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Rob. Great episode.
Have a good one.